Hello Dragon Ball Super family. Welcome to a dark time of Dragon Ball Super TCG, where we have an FTK deck available. I'm Legends Michael Carrick of Team Foe X PPG, and today I'm going to bring you my King Vegeta FTK deck that I piloted in this weekend's Carta Magical Regionals to an X2 finish, and with which my teammate won the regionals with. For those unfamiliar with the term, FTK is an initialism that stands for first turn kill. In regards to Dragon Ball, it's referencing the first turn that you can attack, and I succeeded in achieving this 3 times today, with the other 2 times leaving my opponents resourceless and limping at life. My matchups today were Blue Baby, King Vegeta, Cell Surge, Tien, Goku Zeno, Reboot Soul Striker, and Gogeta Zeno, with my 2 close losses being to Tien and Goku Zeno, but I attribute both of those losses to my lack of aggro piloting experience. At a few points during each match, I went for board control instead of life, and I could have easily taken the games in hindsight. Let's head on over to the deck list. For those who are unfamiliar yet, this is the King Vegeta leader from set 13. He has this first auto. When this card is placed in your leader area, activate up to 1 Young Invaders from your deck, which is this card, and we'll go over that later. Second auto, when this card attacks, look at up to 5 cards from the top of your deck, add up to 1 Mono Red Saiyan with an energy cost of 5 or less among them, and add them to your hand. Then shuffle your deck. And then the part that makes this leader so busted. His awakening conditions are when you or your opponent's life is at 4 or less, you may draw 1 card, switch up to 1 of your energy to active mode, add cards from your life to your hand until you have 5 life left, and then flip this card over. On the backside, he gains a permanent where he's allowed to reduce the combo of all red Saiyan cards with 500 power in your hand by 1. Then he has the auto when this card attacks, draw a card, pretty standard. And then he has a secondary auto, which sometimes comes in handy. Auto once per turn, when the power of one of your opponent's cards is decreased, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, and it gets minus 10k power for the turn. And that will automatically trigger the first time one of your opponent's cards is decreased. So sliding right into the deck, we'll start with the Young Invaders field card that your leader plays by sitting down. The field card has the auto if your leader card is this guy. At the start of your opponent's turn, play up to 1 red Saiyan card with 500 power from your deck to your opponent's battlefield. Then, shuffle your deck. If you played a card, you cannot play battle cards that aren't Saiyan cards for the rest of the turn. So this prevents you from slamming down like Bardock the Resolute as soon as your opponent crits a life. Uh, a note for everybody getting into the deck, you do have to shuffle your deck every time it goes to your opponent's turn, even if you choose not to play a Young Invader to their side of the field. Then we have the Activate Main. Once per turn, add up to 1 card from your life to your hand. Then play up to 1 red Saiyan card with 500 power from your deck in rest mode, with its skills negated for the game. Then shuffle your deck. This is awesome because it gives you 1 extra red Saiyan battle card to your side of the field that you can use the rest of your engine with. And then it has a second Activate Main that we occasionally use. Activate Main once per turn, 1 red energy. Choose one of your opponent's battle cards, and it gets minus 5k power for the turn. This is a great way to deal with Black Mass Sand if your opponent opens up with that, and it also lets you trigger your leader secondary auto on its backside. So, going to the Young Invaders that pair with this field spell, we play 2 copies of Raditz and 2 copies of Vegeta Young Invader. Vegeta Young Invader is without a doubt the better one of the two. Vegeta Young Invader, they both have this first auto where when this card is played, if your life is at 5 or more, and your opponent's leader card is this, place 1 card from your life into your drop and draw a card. So when you're at the beginning of your opponent's turn, when you play a Young Invader to their side of the field, if they have 5 or more life, they'll crit 1 life and draw a card. So effectively your opponent starts their game at 7 life. The Vegeta has a secondary auto once per turn. When one of your cards is attacked, reduce that or choose that card, and it gets minus 5k power for the battle, which is really cool because the first attack you make on your opponent, their response or whatever card you're attacking has 5k less power. The only reason why we chose to play a 2-2 split is in case the game goes past turn 1 and your opponent slams a Mechikabura on turn 2 and calls Vegeta the Young Invader. Now you have a backup choice in Raditz Young Invader. But if you don't feel like that's a necessary, or if you feel like you can just risk pass it, then just play 4 copies of Vegeta the Young Invader, and it's really not a problem. Then we go into the core of the deck. We have 4 copies of Vegeta Switching Gear. Vegeta Switching Gear has his auto when he's played. You can choose 1 other card in your hand, bottom deck it, and draw 2 cards. It's amazing. He plays for 0 mana through his Activate Main. You may choose one of your or your opponent's Young Invaders on the field, bottom deck it, send it to the bottom of the owner's deck, and then play this card from your hand. And then, of course, if you successfully do this, you can no longer Activate Main on this card for the rest of this turn. This is really cool. When note for all those people that are trying to counterplay this card, when you activate this card, you actually just reveal it in your hand, and the Young Invader does not go to the bottom of the deck for cost. So if they choose to counterplay with like God Sealing or like Super Kamehameha, uh, or sorry, if they try to counterplay with like God Sealing, this will just go back to your hand, and you'll keep the Young Invader and you just try again. So it's super troll. This is your first of free 10k attackers, and then the second half of the core of the deck goes into the SSG Vegeta to the next level, probably the second best card of the deck. You want to open your hand with either one of these in your opening hands. So he has an auto when this card is played. Search up to the top 5 cards of your deck for a red Saiyan with energy cost of 5 or less and add it to your hand. And then, of course, you may shuffle your deck. Or you can choose to add a unison with cost of 1 or less, but specified energy cost of 1, but we don't play a unison in the deck. And then he has this activate man. You play him for 1 mana by choosing one of your opponent's Young Invaders and sending it to the bottom of the deck. So it gives you a 1 mana 19k critical attacker. He does have unique, which is something you have to watch around or play around. But the fact that he's a 1 mana 19k that replaces himself already is absurd enough for this deck. And moving past the King Vegeta core, we'll add the little aggro package core. So we play 4 copies of Chain Attack Bardock. Chain Attack Bardock has his permanent Bond 3 red Saiyan cards. If you do control, Bond is if you control this X number amount of battle cards in the battle area. So we have Bond 3 red Saiyan cards. This card will gain 11k power and critical. So it's a really cool way that you can play around him. If, say, you're playing the Kai negate, you can like warp the other Saiyan. You can negate the attack, warp the other Saiyan, and now suddenly you don't have Bond for the rest of the turn. Or you don't have Bond until they can generate more cards. But this is really cool because it's a 1 mana 15k critical, and then he has this tacked on auto when this card attacks. Choose it to one of your opponent's battle cards, and it gets minus 4k power for each red Saiyan in your battle area, and or Bardock's crew, but we're not playing any Bardock's crew that aren't red Saiyans. So it's really cool. A lot of times you can use this attack to snipe out blockers, or just take out like the Kai pseudo combo in VJX while pushing critical damage. And then for our next 1 cost battle card that we're going to play, we play 4 copies of Chain Attack Borgos. Chain Attack Borgos is also another Bond 3 card. With Bond 3, he becomes a 15k single striker. He has his auto when this card is played, draw a card. So, funny enough, that is it for the amount of battle cards that we're going to play. That is all of our attackers that we actually pay mana for, not to include switching gears. So just these 12 are what you're looking to spend mana for in this deck. Everything else in this deck is a free play, which is why we're allowed to FTK. In your opening hand, like I said, you want to try to keep one of these. These you can search for with your leader and or your Vegeta. However, if you're going first and you don't have either one of these in your open hand, but you did see a Borgos in your pre-mulligan, I would suggest keeping a Borgos so you can just cast it to cantrip a card and set it for your next turn. And we'll revisit these when we go over the FTK combo. I should have organized that back there. And then now we have our free play package. First, we'll start with Bodyguard Legic. Bodyguard Legic has blocker, which doesn't matter on this card, but he has this permanent. When your opponent has battle cards in their battle area, and you do not have a battle card in your battle area, you can play this cost from your hand without paying its energy cost. This is really cool because at the start of your opponent's turn, you're going to give them a Young Invader, meaning they get a battle card now. So you guarantee make this live if you're going second. So obviously if you're going second, you lost a die roll, you want to keep this in your opening hand as well. It's just another 15k attacker to help put your opponent to 4 before you awaken. We play a full suite, 4 copies of Mercenary Tau as part of our extenders. Mercenary Tau, if you have 3 battle cards in your battle area and your leader card is red, 3 or more non-token battle cards, in play, and your leader card is red, you can play this card from your hand, and it gains critical for the turn. So it's a 0 mana 15k critical. Really nuts. We play 4 copies because we cannot search this, given that it's not a red Saiyan, so we definitely want to keep one of these in our opening hand. We play 1 copy of SS3 Goku One Hit Wonder. This is another free play. When one of your opponent's battle card's power is decreased, you can play this card from your hand as long as you don't control one already. So this combos well with the Chain Attack Bardock. When you attack with Bardock and you reduce like either their blockers that they played or their like whatever battle card they played, you can play this 15k out for free to continue pushing damage. We only play 1 copy of it because it is a red Saiyan, so it's searchable by both your 90k and your leader, and also because it can only be triggered by Chain Attack Bardock in this deck. There's a small world where you can pay the 1 mana for Young Invaders like mid to late game if your game takes too long to trigger this effect, so that's why we really only play 1 of it. It's just difficult to get out. On the backside, like I said, if the game does go long, it does have this nifty activate battle where you can pay 1 red, choose this card from your drop and warp it, and then you can minus 5k a battle card at the battle area, and of course that triggers your leader's effect to minus another 10k on the battle card, effectively giving you a 1 mana minus 15k combo power and any swinging battle card. And to continue our free plays, we play. Oh, sorry, it's one hit wonder. I put that way too far down. Continuing our free plays, we play 2 copies of Belmont Double Devastation. Belmont Double Devastation has this activate main. Choose 3 of your battle cards and place them in their owner's drop areas, and then play this card from your hand. So it's a 0 mana to play this card as long as you've burnt a bunch of these attacks already. And then it has this really cool attack on auto when you play this card. Choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and KO it. No energy restrictions. So you can just get rid of anything that's in front of you. You're not really going to use it for this control aspect. A really cool combo is you can use Belmont to sacrifice off Mercenary Towers that have already attacked, or your unique 19k that's already attacked, or you're switching gears and now you get another attacker. Plus now it allows you to play another Mercenary Tower from your hand. That's why we really play 4 of them. This card I definitely wish I played 3 to 4 of. If I were to play this deck again, I would definitely bump this card up by more. Another free cast card in the deck, we play 1 copy of Bardock the Resolute. Bardock the Resolute plays itself. If your leader card is red, when your opponent's life is added to their hand or placed in their drop by one of your skills, you may play this card from your hand, and then so that triggers off of any of the crits we play. That means that includes Mercenary Tau, the Bardock Chain Attacks, and the 19k Vegetas. As soon as you get one of those in, Bardock the Resolute comes down. He's got this cool auto once per turn. When your opponent activates a counter skill, switch this card to active mode. So once you have your Bardock the Resolute, it's generally smarter just to swing with it right away. That way, any negate they try to apply later in the turn, they have to think twice about whether they want this thing to restand. It's also a double strike, I forgot to mention. And continuing on with our free plays, we have 2 copies of SS3 or SS4 Bardock Fighting Against Fate. It's just an overarm 6 dual attack, probably one of the best finishers in the game right now. If you don't own any, I would strongly suggest getting a pair. We only ended up playing 3. I wish I played a third overarm, but not particularly an SS4 Bardock Fighting Against Fate. Because to make Fighting Against Fate live, you have to play 3 Belmonts. So maybe if I went to 3 or 4 Belmonts, I would play a third copy of Fighting Against Fate. But if I stayed at 2 Belmonts, I would play a Bardock Awaken Instincts. Just because it's an overarm 4 and you can draw into more Bardocks and Mercenary Towers for extra attacks and crits. But yeah, this card is insane. It's a great finisher. And then finally, for our last free play card, we play 1 copy of SS4 Son Goku, a Heartfelt Plea. Heartfelt Plea plays itself by sacrificing a 25k battle card from your battle area upon your awakening. So we can do this really easily. It also has offering and triple strike, which is really convenient. But we can do this really easily by sacrificing our 19k Vegeta tagged with one of these 4 copies of Cabba's Awakening. Cabba's Awakening is a simple activate battle. Choose up to one of your opponent's, choose up to one of your cards, your red cards, I'm sorry, including your leader, and it gains plus 6k power for the duration of the battle. So you can attack with something. So once you've already attacked with this, you can attack with, like, say, your leader or something else, and then apply Cabba's Awakening to this card. It goes to 25k base. Declare Awakening, reveal Heartfelt Plea, sacrificing the now 25k SS Vegeta to the next level to generate your Heartfelt Plea play. And now you have a triple striker that also probably drew you 2 cards when it came in due to offering. Speaking of Cabba's Awakening, we play 4 copies of Cabba's Awakening. I chose not to play Death Ball on my deck list today because it cost 1 mana, and I don't want to be spending a mana on anything that isn't attacking, because I'm trying to kill them on turn 1. Cabba's Awakening, in addition to pushing forward Heartfelt Plea, it acts like a pseudo super combo. Being a 6k power boost means your opponent has to spend 2 cards to get over it. On the defense, it's even better because if you already are 5k above your opponent, they try to super combo pass, so you can just Cabba's Awakening to trade for it. Cabba's Awakening, like I said, being 6k is so important in this deck. It turns your 19k Vegeta into a 25k attacker, so your opponent actually has to spend 3 cards to get over it if they want to avoid that crit early game. It also turns Mercenary Tau into your opponent has to spend 2 cards. I could go on and on about why this card's amazing. It can't get interrupted by cards that remove combos from the combo area. So, give this card a try definitely in this deck, and tell me what you think. So, that's all of our threats and attackers for the deck. The deck is practically straight gas. It's just all 1-drops or 0-drops that attack, which is why it allows you to FTK your opponent. And at the end of this video, I'll quickly go over how you perform like a simple variation of the FTK, right? And I'll try to avoid using the 1-ofs in this deck to show you. Of course, any 1-of, like your Heartfelt Plea, your 1-hit wonder, your Bardock the Resolute, increases the amount of damage that you can do in this deck just drastically. I mean, drawing extra Belmonts increases the amount of damage you can do in this drastic. So it's kind of insane how much it can do. And if you really just don't think you can FTK them that turn, then you can just crit. You can only hit them with crits, right? Like you can just hit them with your 19k, your chain attack Bardox, and your Tau, and then just leave everything else standing until next turn. Then you go again, and your opponent has even less resources to deal with because everything in this deck practically replaces itself. So moving away from the battle cards, we play 4 copies of Raditz and use super combos. Uh, it's just the 4 life bottom deck 1 draw 2 super combo. We choose to play it because our leader front side can search it out since it's a mono red Saiyan. Our 19k Vegeta can search it out because it's a red Saiyan. And speaking of that Vegeta, I forgot to mention on Heartfelt Plea that Vegeta searches out a 5-drop or less red Saiyan. Heartfelt Plea does fit that requirement, so Heartfelt Plea can be searched out by that 19k crit Vegeta, not by your leader though. Um, there is some argument for playing like Nappas over the Raditz Sand Youth because you can use them twice in aggro. They're also 10k attackers if you see them super early game to put your opponent to 4. However, they can't be searched by your leader, and they don't actually draw you cards. And a lot of times you're trying to filter through your deck for further like extension plays. So I'd rather play this card. And then since Baby is one of our hardest matchups for this deck, probably our only hard matchup, we chose to play 4 copies of my King Piccolo's Underling. Mine is just a silver bullet. It's got barrier when you play this card, draw a card. Don't forget to draw a card when you play the card. Then it's got this auto once per turn when your opponent switches their energy to active mode using a counter skill. Place up to 1 card in your opponent's life and 1 card in your opponent's energy in their drop area. So it pretty much punishes them for using Big Bang Attack or D-Magic and doesn't let them untap to continuously negate you for the rest of the turn. And if they choose to play stuff like Mechie Orp, it punishes that too. If you're not playing against Baby, you can just charge this, or you can. I mean, it's still a 5k combo. Like it's a 1k can't, or it's a 1-drop cantrip at worst. And then for our defensive package of the game, we chose to play 2 copies of Testing the Opposition in case we played against another copy of this deck. We wanted to be able to survive their turn 1 in case we went first and then they went and tried to all in us. Ultimately, I should have realized that people were still probably on the green-red version of King Vegeta or the unison variants of King Vegeta, so I didn't need this. I probably would have played this as an extra Belmont, and this is an extra fighting against Fate in the end. But it's cool. It's your sparking counterattack, negate the attack of your leader's red, and then play a blocker. That blocker does have combo power, so that is relevant sometimes. And if you go off on turn 1 and you don't kill your opponent, you leave him like limping at like 2 life and no resource, and they try to check your field, you're gonna be at 5 life because you awaken, so you can just sparking testing oppositions to protect your board with the double negate. And then our last defensive card, and what I treat as the secret rare for this deck, we have King Vegeta's Imposing Presence. This card I definitely would keep at 1 at least in the future copies. So in the case, once again, that you don't kill your opponent in the first turn, you have this as a backup because you only need to resolve this once per game. If you don't kill them in the first turn, you're definitely going to kill them in the second turn of the game. If the game drags on further than that, you definitely need to re-look at how you played that game and where you messed up for sure. But King Vegeta's Imposing Presence, super cool counterattack. If your leader card is a mono red Saiyan card, you may choose the attacking card and reduce its ignoring barrier and reduce its power by 10k, which of course triggers your Awakened Side's ability. And then you can't activate other copies of this card for the rest of the turn. And oh, sorry. And then if your opponent wants to attack with anything else for the rest of the turn, they have to give that card minus 5k, which is kind of cool because barrier cards can no longer attack after this card is live because they can't get 5k. Definitely be careful of how you utilize this card. If you give your opponent a Young Invader and then you use this card, now your opponent can just clear a Young Invader by sending off by attacking with it, and then this will give it minus 5k. What's really cool about this card is it's permanent. If your life is at 3 or less, you can activate this card's counter skill from your hand without paying its energy cost, and instead by just discarding one of your many cards that you probably aren't live at this point in the game, like Mai or Legic. So that's our 50 card deck. 49 if you don't include Young Invaders. I chose not to play an SCR because none of the SCRs work on turn 1 or turn 2. It seems kind of greedy, but if you try out the deck list, you'll see what I'm talking about. Like Heroine's Lineage is just never live because your opponent's dead before it's live. Kai is never live because your opponent, once again, is dead before it's live. Probably the only SDR you could play in this deck is the the negative Dragon Balls, but why would you clear your own field, right? So definitely give this deck a try and let me know what you think. And quickly we'll go over the FTK combo real quick. So I'll set aside 8 cards to symbolize your opponent's life. And so let's just say you're going second, right? Because second is where you really, like, it's even more impressive if you're going second. So if you're going second, your opponent starts the game with 1 Young Invader, right? Which means their life goes down to 7, wherever it is. You go to your turn. You can start your turn by charging and attacking your leader, right? So now your opponent's leader goes down to 5k because it's your first attack. You'll search whatever you need to search, and because your opponent's leader is a 5k, they're not going to give you 2 cards at the start of the game to prevent a 10k combo, so their life goes down to 6, right? Then you can send away your Vegeta, and most of the time I'll take a life off Young Invaders first and add a card to hand and play a dude so I can have extra cards to send away with switching gears. But in this scenario, also, if you see the Legic before you play a Young Invader, you could play your Legic because they have a battle card right now. Anyway, so you'll send away their Young Invader that you gave them, and you'll play your Switching Gears. Your Switching Gears will draw you some sort of cards or whatever you need to draw, and then you'll attack with Switching Gears because your opponent's still on the front side, they're on 10k. Obviously, if you want to go the crit route, this is not what it's going to look like. But this is just a basic variant of the FTK. So you swing at your leader 10k. If they choose to give you a card, great, to combo out. If they choose not to, that's a free damage, right? So let's just assume they chose not to give you, or they chose to combo out. So now your opponent lost a card in the hand for that. Sweet. So you're going to use your Young Invaders, you're going to add a card to your hand from your life, and you're going to play a kid to your side of the field. That's awesome. Now that you have a kid on your side of the field, you can do some crazy stuff. So you have 2 Saiyans on your side of the field. You can tap one, and you tap your 1 energy, you can play your Chain Attack Bardock, right? Using Chain Attack Bardock, now you have 3 Saiyans, you can attack your leader. If they choose the Sparking Negate, like with the blocker, they can't, like if they took this life to go to 5 and chose to Sparking Negate, then it creates that blocker is now on the field for your auto to take out. And if your auto does take it out, you can play your one-hit wonder. But in this scenario, they chose not to, right? So now you have 15k crit going at your opponent. That brings them to 5. That doesn't even go to their hand. And because you have this many battle cards on the field, you can go into Tau. So Tau is another attack. Crits your opponent down to 4. You have Legic to swing at your opponent. Your opponent is now faced with the decision. Do I awaken now and burn my awaken on my opponent's turn? Or do I just take this and go as far down as I possibly can before it's dangerous? A lot of people will choose to go down to 3, which I think is a mistake, but they want to hold their awaken for their turn because that untapped 1 mana is super relevant to them. Anyways, because they were at 4 or less, now your leader can awaken, you get your 1 mana back. We'll use this to symbolize the mana. You get your 1 mana back, and you draw a card, and you take life until you go down to 5, which is incredible, because now you drew extra cards for your opponent. So you drew like 3 cards from your life this turn. You draw an extra card from your deck, so it's like untap 1, draw 4, effectively, right? You have your 1 mana back, so you can choose one of your many 1 mana plays, and in this scenario, we choose to play this SS Vegeta to the next level. We're going to search our top 5, and we can swing with this. There's another crit. So if your opponent at any point chooses to combo out of any of this stuff, their hand is getting like demolished because a lot of this is 15Ks, way over 15K. They spend 1 or 2 cards to get out of these attacks. Right? If they choose to combo out of all of it, like that's great. You don't kill them on turn 1, but now they don't have a hand to kill you with on turn 2. And then when you go to your turn 2, you just kill them anyway with the same amount of board that you built. And this entire time, you kept like 7 to 9 cards in hand. And now we look towards our play extenders, right? Like because we've already used all this, we can sacrifice these 3. Or we would actually sacrifice the Bardock because we're no longer going to have the we're no longer going to have Bond for Bardock. So now we have Belmod. We could attack with Belmod. Or if you had another Tau in your hand, you would play the Tau first, and you would try to crit them with Tau or the Belmod. And then you would combo in on one of these to get 3 cards in your drop at some point, and then you would go in for fighting against Fate, wherever it is. And that's your opponent's last 2 life. Like I said, if they choose to combo out of any of this stuff, they've lost their entire hand. They may have 2 cards left in hand, sitting at 2 or 3 life if they chose to combo out of everything, and they've already burnt their awaken to survive. That way they don't have to spend so much combo out of everything. Then you just go to turn 2 and you do it again, right? And this is like without any of the one of play extenders wherever the SS3 Goku is, right? Like at any point, if you get any of these down, these are just extra double and triple and an extra attack that you can go to your opponent. And of course, extra Belmods means you can Belmod again, develop more attackers. Like you can just be as creative as you want. Of course, if you go first, the deck's even more deadly because now you have a second energy to work with, which allows you to cast stuff like Borgos to draw an extra card, and he's a 15k attacker. Like you can do way too much with this deck. What I'm trying to say is, Bandai, if you watch any of these videos, please ban this deck. No control player wants to play the game while this deck exists. So, yeah, that was my King Vegeta FTK deck. Let me know how you like it down in the comments. And shout out to FoX PPG for creating such a great environment to play Dragon Ball with. Shout out to all my teammates for helping me brainstorm and figure out ways to beat this deck. because I do think this is going to run wild for a little bit. FTK decks are just never friendly in a game where we have mana resource. And shout out to my teammate for taking down the entire event with the same deck. But catch you guys next time.